This is the iPad Pro from 2018, which has been going on sale a lot recently, and I think it's a very good deal for students or people who are working from home. So I'm going to make this a short video just to explain a few reasons why I think it might be for you, and also outline some things that a lot of people aren't talking about, especially for university students. I'm going to focus on the general aspect, but I'll go more in depth on students and then artists later in the video. Okay, so the first thing to talk about is the design. It's a really nice design, kind of blending the iPhone 12 with the iPhone 4S, but it is very fragile. A lot of people have been able to break it with their bare hands. So I'd definitely recommend putting a case on this thing, especially if you're taking it out a lot, but if you're a daredevil you could leave it naked. Another option is also to get skin. Although it's not going to protect it from bending, you can stop all those little scuffs while still keeping it very thin and light. So the iPad Pros come with USB-C, unlike the other iPads and the iPhones, which basically means if you have an Android phone or a MacBook you can share the charger and use the same accessories like dongles. It also has Face ID, which in my opinion isn't as good as Touch ID, but it's still really fun to use, and you also get Memoji and things like that, which aren't really important to students. The main difference with the 2018 model and the 2020 version is actually the cameras. So the 2018 one only has a single camera, but it's on the back, which I think is not really important for an iPad. The most I'd use this for is scanning documents, but even then I'd prefer using my iPhone. So one problem a lot of people have with tablets is that a lot of them don't come with keyboards, and the iPad, although it's okay typing on the screen, I do recommend getting a keyboard, especially if you're going to be writing a lot of essays. You can get Apple's own keyboard, but it's really expensive, so I just recommend getting a Bluetooth keyboard, maybe even a mechanical one like I have. Whilst I'm on campus, I always carry my iPad. It's a lot lighter than my MacBook, but you will still feel it in your backpack. It's just more convenient, which I think is really important, especially if you're walking around campus for 6 to 7 hours. You don't really want to be carrying around a massive laptop like a gaming laptop or even a MacBook, because it does get heavy over time. The speakers on the iPad are also very good. They're good enough to watch movies on, although you won't enjoy them as much as headphones, but I find them really strong for online lectures, which obviously we have a lot more of nowadays. Apple actually released an update after the iPad came out, making it feel more like a laptop. It added things like mouse support and file management, which is really important, especially if you want to use this as your main device. If you have an Apple Pencil and your handwriting isn't as dreadful as mine, you can use that instead of a keyboard and just handwrite everything, although your mileage may vary. You can also browse the internet very well on the iPad, so things like online shopping or just going around your university's website might be a lot easier than on your laptop. The new model does have improved specs, but the only one that I'd say is very important is the double storage, and at the price difference you might be able to get away with just getting a USB-C flash drive. Okay, so for students now. The most important change that we've had to experience is going all online, and that all works fine on the iPad. You can download Teams, Google Meet or Zoom or whatever alternative your university or college uses, and that all runs perfectly fine. I really can't stress how good the iPad is for note-taking, and I'll probably make a video about it in the future, but just to touch on it a little bit here, it's amazing. You don't have to carry as many folders as you would for all of your modules. You can just put it all on the iPad, and you can also put diagrams, put slides, put audio in there, so it's definitely a lot easier than trying to type all your notes. There have been a lot of studies that conclude that handwriting your notes is a lot better for memory retention than typing your notes, but with the iPad you kind of get the best of both worlds. You can send these on a group chat, print them out, edit them later and carry them on your phone, but you also handwrite them, so you get to remember a lot of the information whilst you're making it. There's actually a bit of a community out there just for note-taking on the iPad, and they make all their notes look amazing, and it's definitely not something I could ever do, but if you're interested in it you could look on it on Instagram. Whilst all of the apps that you'd expect to work, like Microsoft Office and the Google Suite work, there might be a few issues with your university. So for example, I know Durham has a software that you can't actually run on an iPad, so maybe double check beforehand. Also, if you use a lot of remote access, then you might not be able to do that on the iPad. It's obviously different for every university, but just be safe and ask your university lecturers before you get one. Alright, so this part is going to be for the artists. The screen is amazing to draw on. It's also amazing for editing visually, so photos or videos. It's very color accurate, and it's a 120 Hz display, which means that it feels a lot more like paper than a regular 60 Hz display, which you'd find on a Cintiq or even on a phone or a laptop. It does take a second to get used to drawing on glass, but you can get screen protectors out there, like one that I have, which is matte, which kind of gives more resistance. Alright, so applications are a bit more complicated. So whilst Photoshop and Illustrator are really weird on iPad, and I wouldn't say they're as good as a laptop, you do have the different Adobe versions, so Sketch, Draw and Fresco, but you also have access to iPad native apps such as Procreate, which you've definitely heard about if you are an illustrator. A lot of people use Procreate just because it's a lot simpler and it's more like drawing on paper than Photoshop. Procreate is the main app that I use, so if you want to see more about that, I'll be posting more videos about that in the future, but just a quick note on it now, it's very useful, but I do recommend always taking it finally over to a computer, maybe that you have or the university has, and doing those little touch-ups that Photoshop just can't be replaced with. If you do have a MacBook, you can also use the iPad for Sidecar, which basically means you can use it as an external monitor, but you can also draw on this monitor, which is really important, and I'll make a video on this later. There is something really fun about just taking a tablet out and starting a drawing and getting very engrossed into it, and you can do that literally wherever with the iPad. I've drawn a lot on the iPad, and one thing I do need to mention now is be very careful with how you use it. If you're sitting in bed and slouching, you can get some back pains, so I recommend always varying how you're drawing, maybe stand up or maybe take it to a desk or a countertop. Do remember that you have to buy the Apple Pencil separately, and if you have the iPad Pros or the iPad Air 4th generation, you have to buy the 2nd generation Apple Pencil. It is very expensive, but it's definitely worth it, and it's a lot better than using any of the cheaper styluses that you might find on eBay. The pencil has a 9 millisecond response time, which just means that you won't feel a delay whilst you're drawing, which is something really annoying that you would find in some cheaper graphics tablets. I would be careful though, because the pencil is very delicate and you can easily snap it in your hand just like a normal pencil, but if you're writing, then I wouldn't be too worried about the tip breaking or anything like that. Do remember that there are a lot of things that you can't do on an iPad that you would be able to do on a laptop, but they are half the price, if not less, than MacBooks, so you can always consider what your use case is and see if you can make it work. I know for me personally, I can use the iPad as my main device until I want to do anything such as illustration, in which case I need to resort to my MacBook. Before I end the video, I want to mention that a lot of university students don't have that much money, so don't feel pressured into buying anything like this. It does help, but you can always use other methods. You can get a cheaper iPad or even stick to traditional methods such as a notebook or a sketchbook. There's also the cheaper iPad 8th generation, which is a decent alternative, coming in at less than £350, so if you are on a budget, you can always consider that. I do hope this video was helpful for anyone that was thinking about buying an iPad, maybe for this semester that just started, or even for next year. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Thanks a lot, bye bye.